It's mine. Jim, we online?
Yes, we are.
Good afternoon. I apologize for starting 15 minutes late. We had a extensive executive, and here we are for our September meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order as we continue to make the transition to in-person meetings. Some of the attendees are participating via teleconference. Today's public meetings are also being live streamed from the Port Authority website. We will now hold the public meetings, starting with the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, which will be chaired by the Vice Chair, Jeff Linford. We will conclude the public portion of today's meeting with the public board meeting. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today's meeting on the Committee of Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management is being held in public session in its entirety. At this point, I ask the Secretary to advise those present of the composition of the committee and any commissioner recusals on the items before the committee.
The Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management is composed of Vice Chairman Linford, the committee chair, Chairman O'Toole, the committee vice chair, Commissioners Helmy, LaBarbera, and Rosado. All committee members are present. In addition, also present are Commissioners Bolwage, Cohen, Eve, Fisher, Kelly, McCabe, and Richardson. There are no recusals required on the matter before the committee.
I thank you. I now call on our Deputy Director of Tunnels, Bridges, and Terminals, Dennis Stabile, to present an item that would authorize planning for a study to assess the feasibility of widening the Outer Bridge crossing. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today, I'm requesting a planning authorization for the Outer Bridge Crossing widening feasibility study at a total estimated cost of $8.3 million. The Outer Bridge Crossing opened to traffic in 1928 and connects Staten Island, New York to Perth Amboy, New Jersey. The bridge is approaching its 100-year anniversary. Due to its age and shortcomings with narrow lanes and no shoulders, improvements are required to improve traffic flow and reduce congestion. There are several related initiatives that are underway and planned for the Outer Bridge Crossing. In the near term, we are performing a rehabilitation project which is currently in construction to address the most critical priority structural repairs on the bridge. This work is expected to be completed by December 2024. In the midterm, we are performing a project which is currently in design for additional structural repairs to maintain the bridge in a state of good repair as well as extend its useful life by 15 years. This design work was authorized by the board in February 2023. As a next step, based on the findings of the proposed widening study, we will determine the feasibility of advancing a project to widen and redeck the existing bridge. Scope of work will determine if widening the bridge can improve traffic flow and reduce congestion. The deliverables of the study include development of schemes to strengthen and widen the existing bridge, a traffic modeling analysis including the approach access ramps, identification of impacts on properties beyond the Port Authority's right-of-way required to widen the bridge, and options for a new shared use path. The Port Authority's government and community relations staff have engaged with local elected and community leaders in Staten Island and New Jersey in advance of today's action. This authorization request is for $8.3 million to study the feasibility of widening the Outer Bridge Crossing and authorization for the Executive Director to enter into an agreement with HDR Incorporated, the highest rated proposer selected pursuant to a publicly advertised request for proposals to perform the study. Commissioners, I request you advance this item to the full board for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. Do any commissioners have comments or questions on this matter? May I please have a motion from a committee member who is not recused on the matter? Thank you. May I have a second? Second. Thank you. Motion that therefore is, first I guess we need a vote, huh? Okay, thank you. Motion is passed. Now, this concludes today's meeting of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair. All right, moving ahead. Good afternoon. The board meeting of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and its component units is now being called to order. Today's in-person meeting is also being held virtually via video conference with the proceedings live streamed from the Port Authority website. On September 13th, the Audit Committee met in executive session. Earlier today, the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management met in public, and the Committee on Finance met in executive session as well. Their reports will be filed with the official minutes of today's board meeting. The commissioners also met in executive session earlier today to discuss matters related to personnel or personnel procedures, matters involving ongoing negotiations or reviews of contracts or proposals, matters related to the purchase, sale, or lease of real property where the disclosure would affect the value thereof or the public interest, and to discuss and act upon matters related to proposed, pending, or current litigation or administrative proceedings. At this moment, during this September meeting, I'd like to take a moment of silence in remembrance of the 22nd anniversary of September 11, 2001, the terrorist attacks, the World Trade Center, and across our country, and those lives that were lost on this horrible, horrific day. Today, we want to stand for a moment and remember our 84 friends and colleagues from the Port Authority, as well as the first responders and recovery workers who were lost as a result of the 9/11 illnesses. I also ask at this time that we remember those who perished in the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. At this somber part of the meeting, we also want to remember two members of the Port Authority family who we lost recently. In August, we lost Maria Flores, a senior administrative secretary in the aviation department with 20 years of service. And earlier this month, we lost Charlie Fausta, the assistant director of the all-electronic tolling and tunnels, bridges, and terminals, who had 45 years of Port Authority service. We miss both of their colleagues and we grieve with their families. And at this moment, we just pause for a minute and think about Charles and Maria. Thank you. During the last week, many of us attended 9/11, the ceremony on Monday. And also a couple days before, there was a very special rose ceremony. I want to thank Lillian Valente and Alan Reese and the other Port Authority employees, all of Port Authority's employees that have kind of staged out the various moments of remembrance, observation, whether it be the rose ceremony, the pillar ceremony, or the actual 9/11, the Mass at St. Peter's. I think they're really important. And, Rick and I we went over to the rose ceremony, and it's where you take with Port Authority current members, and each of us just pick up a rose, and we go to the reflecting pools and find the name that's attached to the rose of the 84 family members that were lost, and we put that rose attached to the name that is, obviously one of those individuals who passed. And it's one of those connective things that we have to really do more of. It's 22 years ago, but it's just a special, somber connection for those of us in this small group to pay some respect, some remembrance, pause for a moment, and just connect to that family that we lost, those 84 that we lost, and the members that we lost in 1993. And I really appreciate whoever thought about that a few years ago, put it to practice. It's something that you just feel it in that moment. And afterwards, Rick and I walk over to the St. Nicholas Church, and we both take a moment and we place some flowers down at a special spot and talk about those individuals who we have lost, the first responders and those who responded were lost that day, and those who have gotten sick, and we've lost them afterwards. But it's something we have to just continue to do and be mindful of it. I want to thank the Port Authority employees for making that also special. Our next order of business, as we switch gears here, is we are going to pay a tribute to a dear friend, former Commissioner Daniel Horowitz. Daniel has been amazing in so many ways, and I'm sure other commissioners want to speak about Daniel, who started when I started back in July of 2017, if you can believe that. And it was like August when I took the chair for the first meeting. I turned to Daniel and I said, "Hey, Dave." So then he turned back as, "It's Daniel, not Dave." So I said, "Huh, I got to get this one right." But that's really, that's who he is. He is very, I've learned so much from you. I've learned, you're a man of great integrity. You are a man of great intelligence, sometimes with great conviction, sometimes a little emotion, which is okay. I'm based in that as well. But you have brought so much to this agency. And when you go to some of the markers years from now, whether it's the Newark Airport Terminal A or whether it's the time capsule we put out by the Oculus, you're going to see your name out there, Commissioner Daniel Horowitz. And that's going to be for generations to come. That's your legacy and your marker that you've set down here at the Port Authority. And more than that, Commissioner, like you set the tone for us in terms of ethics reform. When we talk about all those great movements we went from yesteryear to present, you were really the flag bearer of how we're going to do that because you've lived your whole life doing that. I can't thank you enough for the contributions you've brought to this agency. And you're not just going to have the reforms that we see today, they will carry forth for generations. It's an evolution over the 102 years that commissioners come and go. But it's hard when the special ones go. You're one of the special ones. And there's a special place in my heart. We're kind of like went to kindergarten together, grew up for the last 6 years. And by the way, it seems like 100 years we've been doing this. You've made a really good agency great. I want to thank you for your contributions. You could talk about your being a chair and vice chair of G&E and all those wonderful finance committee, your special time on audit, which is so critical. And I'm sure you're going to hear from some of your board members who served with you. But this is just from me to you, Daniel. I want to say thank you on behalf of the 8,000 employees, on behalf of all the commissioners, present and future, for all that you've done and all that your reforms will continue to do. We owe you a special debt of gratitude. Thank you very much. I think I bored somebody out there, so I didn't mean to, but heartfelt stuff. And thank you. Anybody else want to be heard before we present you with a special proclamation, a hard hat, and a group photo?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd just like to say a few words to Commissioner Horowitz. Dan, I just want to say, over the last, I guess, 5 years, right, 2017, what a pleasure it's been to work with you, to get to know you, to work with your lovely wife on other issues. And I'm sure our paths are going to continue to cross, and I look forward to continuing our relationship. And thank you for all that you've brought to the board and to the Port Authority. And as Mr. Chairman says, your insight in terms of integrity, you've spent your whole life in ethics dealing with that, I think has really improved the organization in perpetuity. So, I'm sure we'll be seeing each other, but I just wanted to acknowledge it's been such an honor and a pleasure to serve with you. Thank you.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes, thank you. And I'm sorry I'm not there today, but having worked with the commissioner over the last, same thing, about 5 years, working on the audit committee, governance, I learned a lot. And, it goes back to my high school and college days. You want to sit next to one of the smartest kids in class. And that I definitely did, and developed a nice friendship with the commissioner. I look forward to continuing that and learning a lot more. It's been an honor. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner. Vice Chair?
Well, you have been my moral compass, and you've been my source for sanity checks. Now, I need your telephone number because I probably need some more sanity checks, and I'm going to have to call you. But on behalf of all my colleagues, we can't thank you enough, and we're sure we will all work with you in other places and other activities in the future. Good work.
Executive Director?
Well, I'd just like to make a short comment, Dan. You were always at the end of a phone line when I needed advice. I valued your advice. I got a lot of very good advice. You were really, from my point of view, a model board member and always willing to counsel and to bat ideas around. I appreciate it. and I wish you the best.
Anybody else? Might
Yes,
want to-
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Eve.
Yes, I too am just so regretful that I can't be there today to give you a hug in person, but hopefully I'll be able to give you one in person soon. One, to echo the comments of all my fellow commissioners, Dan and Rick, but really underscore the points that have been made about your leadership with respect to ethics, governance, and audit. As you know full well, given your tenure on the board, we are now best in class in so many ways. You know, the world's best new airports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the foundation of all of that is being rock solid when it comes to ethics and integrity and in governance and in oversight with respect to our audit and other functions. And all of that has been foundational to all of this spectacular work that our 8,000 employees have done. And you have been the foundation of that foundational work. I couldn't agree more with what Rick just said about you being a model board member. I have learned from you. I still am trying to be as probing as you have been and critical in a super helpful way so that we can, always continue to collectively make the best decisions possible. So this isn't goodbye. It's till we see you again soon. But thank you so much again for the best in class standard you help us as fellow commissioners and as an agency as a whole to meet.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I feel like now, we're at a tipping point, and with Dan out there in the audience looking at me with expectation that I say something, I feel like I can't be silent. And although I agree with the sentiment that you have all expressed, the reality is Dan is not a thoughtful, considered, quiet, scholarly sort. He is iconoclastic and bombastic. And the real value he brought was that he is willing to speak the truth, and he is willing to let you know when you're making a mistake. And there isn't enough of that in the world today. So Dan is an old friend of mine, a neighbor. I say God bless you, and I look forward to seeing you in synagogue on a Sunday night.
Amen.
You comfortable with that description? You feel good about it? Oh, he was going to say something. So at this moment, we ask for a motion to award our friend the Service Excellent Award.
So move.
Here a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Ask
And
for recusals.
no one's getting recused in that. So Vice Chair, before we go down and have a picture and a presentation, can you just read this
My
wonderful?
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Service Excellence Award presented to Daniel J. Horowitz, the Honorable. The Board of Commissioners hereby recognizes the important contributions made by Commissioner Daniel J. Horowitz to the Port of Authority of New York and New Jersey and the region it serves. Since his appointment to the board in July 2017 and through June 2023, Commissioner Horowitz has given tirelessly of his time, talent, and expertise to further the mission and goals of the Port Authority. He has served with distinction as a member of the Board of Commissioners, including as the Chair and Vice Chair of the Governance and Ethics Committee, the Vice Chair of the Audit Committee, and as a member of the Committee on Finance. And he has been committed to the agency's core mission of building and maintaining transportation infrastructure for the region in a fiscally prudent and transparent manner. It is with sincere appreciation the Board of Commissioners thanks Commissioner Horowitz for his leadership and service. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey 2023. Congratulations.
We can ask the Executive Director, all the commissioners to come down and welcome our friend, and we'll have this presentation. Front and center here, sir. On behalf of the board, we're going to present you with that wonderful Service Excellence Award. We're going to this symbolic hard hat and a resolution on behalf of the entire board. Would you like to hold that for me? 3, 2, 1. One more. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to say anything? Yeah. Sure. Congratulations.
Take the mic, man. Take the mic.
You can start the clock. Exactly.
Floor is yours.
So first of all, I just want to say thank you to my fellow commissioners, to Rick and the staff. It's truly been an honor and a privilege to serve the public for the last 6 years on the board of the Port Authority. You know, as somebody who has spent really the entirety of my professional career in and around government, either working as a public servant or after I left professionally to serve on boards and continue in the public service process. I would say that truly the capstone of that, lifetime of experience has been to serve as a member of the board of the Port Authority, which is truly and has been really since, I became involved in government, in the very early 1980s, was always then and has continued to be, the pinnacle of public agency and what it means to be a public agency. And I especially want to tip my hat to you, Mr. Chairman, and to Rick, because you've touched on where the port was in the earlier part of the century. And I think with your leadership, we really have turned the agency, not just with the physical accomplishments with the Terminal A and LaGuardia and Kennedy and what's coming with the bus terminal and the other projects that you guys are continuing to work on, but in terms of how the agency is perceived. And you talked about the importance of governance and ethics, and I was very proud to be, some part of that process. And I think that, you touched on it, Mr. Chairman, those changes that you led with Rick and the others really put the agency in a good stead. And we've had, I think, at least for my time on the board, it's really been truly a collaborative experience. And I think I said this once at a public meeting that this is a bi-state agency, and that means that it's not a group of people from one state or another state advancing their interests. It's a bi-state agency where the commissioners have an obligation to make sure that the community that Congress defined in 1921 as the port region is well served without distinctions between New York or New Jersey. And I think that the governance changes that we put into place 6 years ago put you instead to face challenges that may be coming, in terms of the things that you're confronted with, and they are a bedrock in terms of how you move forward. And I think that one of the things that was very important, in that process, and I'm, continue to be pleased that, this is a board that's committed to that, is that the board is an independent board, and that makes decisions independently based on the right policy decisions and what's in the interest of the port board, not necessarily what's in the interest politically for one particular state or one particular group of people. And I would hope that those, and again, encouraged to hear, each of the board members who spoke today and those, who I've had a chance to work with, and I feel comfortable and confident to know that those changes, Mr. Chairman, that you and Rick and we put into place are going to put us in good stead. And so I want to say thank you. And also I want to make sure that I say thank you to the staff that I had an opportunity to work with. I'll tell you one quick anecdote. Many years ago, when I was still working on Capitol Hill, I had a close friend who worked for a member, and he left and got a degree in public policy at the Wilson School in New Jersey, in Princeton, and he was considering what to do next. And he had an opportunity to come back to the Hill. He was considering, a number of opportunities in the private sector. But the job that he really sort of had his eye on, and this is probably like 1985, 1986, was the Port Authority. Because he said that in 1985 or 1986, working for the Port Authority, which he regarded as the best of the best in terms of public agencies, in terms of the quality of the work that it does, the nature of the work that it does, how the port treats the people that it employs, that there's no question that that would be a place that he wanted to work. Now, it turned out that he ended up coming back to the Hill, but those words stayed with me. And in my experience on the board, I found that in dealing with the staff, everything that my friend Matt Dinkle said to me in 1985 about the port and the people worked here is true. Truly the best of the best. And I'm really pleased that I had an opportunity to work with, all of you who are here today. And those who aren't, and I want to say thank you to the staff and to thank you to the board as well. So thank you very much, and thank you for this.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dan. As the vice chair said, you're a phone call away, and I'm not shy, as I did a couple weeks ago, picking up the phone. I said, hey, I need some advice. That's going to happen in the future, so keep your phone on. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks. Today, we also recognize the actions of two Port Authority police officers who recently assisted with the delivery of a healthy baby at the Lincoln on July 19th, 2023. Ed Setnar, is he here? Ed, give us some details. And did they name the baby after one of these two?
Good afternoon, Chairman, Director Cotton, Commissioners. On July 17, 2023, Lincoln Tunnel officers Timothy Josevic and Evan Butt were on routine patrol when they were alerted to a woman in active labor just prior to the New Jersey toll booths. Officer Josevic arrived on scene and found the woman in labor and crowning with delivery imminent. Officer Butt arrived on scene moments later and was able to provide further care with experience in emergency medical technician training. Minutes later, a healthy baby boy was delivered. Both the mother and infant were transported to the hospital for further treatment and evaluation. Based on the quick actions in medical training, were officers Josevic and Butt able to successfully deliver a newborn into the society. Their professionalism, training, and commitment to duty are within the highest standards of the Port Authority Police Department. I'd like to read the commendation that the board is presenting today to both of these officers. Officer Butt, in recognition for exceptional service in providing immediate medical attention to a woman in labor and assisting with the successful delivery of her baby boy outside the Lincoln Tunnel on Monday, July 17, 2023. This will be presented on behalf of the Commissioners and the Board. And the second one to Officer Josevic, in recognition for exceptional service in providing immediate medical attention to a woman in labor and assisting for the successful delivery of her baby boy outside the Lincoln Tunnel on Monday, July 17, 2023. Chairman, Commissioners, I present Officer Josevic and Officer Butt for your presentation of the award.
We ask the commissioners and the ED to come down and present the awards to the two fine officers.
I'm an all-time director. Sterilize it, let's go.
All right, folks, fallen here. We're going to have the ED present one proclamation, and we're going to have the vice chair present another one. Rick, which one do you have?
I have Officer Timothy.
That's all we need. Officer Timothy, we're good. Congratulations, officer. Job well done. Thank you. Vice Chair, who do you have?
Police Officer Evan Butt.
Congratulations, officer. Yeah, I know.
We got the tough last thing.
Yes.
Off script for a minute. Just want to take a minute to recognize one of our commissioners. While he didn't deliver a baby, George Helmy has done some extraordinary things. If you read recently, he is retiring from his position as chief of staff to Governor Murphy. How many years total, George? Longest serving, is that what we understand?
Longest serving, 4 years, 8 months. Not that I was counting.
No, not at all.
And
So, look, Rick and I have been here 7 years, and it wasn't always it was a different place. A couple, first year or two in, George surfaced as the chief of staff, established immediate communication with us at this level, and George, you made it all right. I will tell you, knew of you, but once you became the chief of staff, engaged in many conversations, meetings, occasional dinner or two, you've been a great friend to the port as the chief of staff. You have made this agency work with the state of New Jersey on behalf of the Port Authority. I know you're going to be with us, but in terms of you leaving the chief of staff, it is meaningful what you've done. You've created these long-term productive collaborations with us, and I can't thank you enough for kind of riding that sail and making that ship go straight. You've been a terrific asset and a partner with us. Couldn't be more overjoyed that you're now part of us. But I thought it was special today. We had to recognize your job as chief of staff, invaluable contributions to making sure the Port Authority was kept on the rails with the state of New Jersey. Thank you very much. Each September, we recognize and honor the friends we've lost and recognize the agency we have become, is exemplified by and inspired by our colleagues. In 2016, our agency created the Pillars of the Port Authority Award as a means for the staff to recognize their peers for upholding and embodying the values of the fallen friends, strength and resilience and commitment to public service and industry expertise. At this time, I just want to read the names of the 11 employees that represent the various departments and operations. Rick and I and a few others went, it seems like a long time ago, Rick, to the Pillars ceremony. And we gave out flowers and plaques, but more importantly, beyond the symbolic, we recognized the 11 dedicated employees selected by other employees on their dedication, their purposefulness, and them representing those we've lost before. And let me read the 11. Under civic and community engagement, we recognize Hillary McCarron. Under commitment to public service, Tony Gordon, Brian Rolfe. In diversity and inclusion, Pamela Mendoza and Kayla Valencia, and Anissa Lau. Is Anissa here? She should be. Anissa, stand up and represent everybody. Here you go. Good job. Under ethics and integrity, Siobhan Smith-Jones, Joseph Monti, Emily Janazzuzo. Under industry expertise, Damian Doherty. Under strength and resilience, Linda Baker. And let me get this straight, Anissa. So we heard, Rick, from, I think it was two things we heard. We heard that day, there was an individual, I think it was a Hillary, who was here for 33 years. And Lillian will correct me. And as she came up and accepted the award, she said to Rick, I've been here for 33 years, but the best has been under your leadership. And it was just so like, wow. She said over the last few years, all the employees have felt this great sense of pride and togetherness, and their leadership's been terrific. And I just, for that moment, that kind of clarified, like she represented everyone, all the Port Authority employees. And it was such a cool nod, Rick, to you and the senior staff. The other meaningful, I hope I get it right, there was an individual there. I think it's Linda. Yes, Clarell. She's shaking her head. It's Linda. And she comes up to us, and she was, Clarell, how many years is she with us now? 20, yeah, in the 20s. And she came up and she says, I can't believe she works for PATH. She works for us. And she said, years ago, know what I did? She goes, I was homeless living in the bus terminal. And she just took our breath away. She was, I was homeless. I had no job, no place to go, no place to eat, no place to rest my head. And she goes, here I stand getting an award for the Port Authority as a 2-decade dedicated employee for PATH. Took my breath away. But that's who our employees are. They take our breath away every single day. I thought it was important today that we recognize those 11 names. And every year we recognize those individuals who all come from different experiences and are shaped by whatever it is that brought them here. They're part of us, and it's kind of special. So the folks who put that pillars together, keep it up. Great program. Finally, the agency's commitment to being an employer of choice. We have prioritized employee engagement. One element of that is that Rick and I and others get to take the tour around the facility, which we've done for 6 years and a couple of months. We're now going to play a short video that talks about our recent visits and interaction with the employees at the Holland, the George Washington Bridge, Central Warehouse, and Automotive, and the Port Authority Technical Center in Port Newark. Now, I have not seen this video yet. I'm just hoping that our folks got it right, Ben. Three things. First of all, the camera puts on 20 pounds. Just you need to know that. 2, that hip hand thing I got to get rid of. Just, I don't know what that's about. 3, when we go to these facilities and we see the employees and we talk to them, and they're not shy, by the way, they have some really cool pointed questions. That is when we get the real organic feedback. What's going on? What's happening? What's good? What's bad? Rick, it's the best thing we've ever done is going out there and just watching what they do. You know, Governor Bob Graham, many, many years ago in Florida, used to go once a day. He'd take a trip out to any facility, and he'd be an employee, like a state employee, toll collector, work in the Everglades, do whatever. And he really did that. I think it was once a week or once every couple of weeks. I just think the leadership has to get down and understand what our folks are doing at every level. Just not give orders from the top down. See what's happening on the ground level. Understand the problems they're having, whether it's childcare, they're having a bad day, if there's things we can do better for them. We want to hear that, and it's really cool, Rick. I think we got, and I know you're committed to doing it. And I want to thank the staff who arranged those things. That's really so connective, and it brings us eye to eye with our employees, our valued employees. And thank you very much for that.
And you also learn what's really going on.
Well, that's true, because the senior staff filters this stuff out. It's the coolest, though. Senior staff shakes when the questions are being asked. Well, I told the boss like 10 years ago about, no, we haven't heard that. Really good stuff. Really. And Rick, I mean, they really give us a good exchange of ideas, and they don't hold back. They ask about pay increases and all kinds of cool stuff, and they keep you on your toes. But that's the kind of feedback that we really want, and I appreciate it. And at this time, talk about feedback. Let's hear from our executive director and hear regarding his monthly report. Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you've noted, and as our moment of silence represented, every September is a difficult time for the Port Authority, and everybody knows why. It is a time when the agency grieves for those we lost in 2001 and in 1993. Over the last 10 days, I've had occasion, mostly related to the opening of the Performing Arts Center, to hear people who were involved in planning the World Trade Center campus. And they framed their thought process in terms of the World Trade Center campus, that it was intended to be, first, a place to grieve, the memorial. Second, a place to learn and to remember, the museum. And third, an institutionalization of looking forward and celebrating life and bringing the area to be more energetic and vibrant than it was before the terrorist attack. So in formulating my report, what I want to say is, as we grieve and remember, we are also in the very active process of reaffirming our commitment to look forward and come back stronger and more vibrant than ever. And this vibrancy, in very brief fashion, is underlined for me by 6 developments over the past 7 weeks between when we last met and today. First and foremost, over the last 10 days, the World Trade Center campus took a giant and remarkably critically acclaimed leap, I should say, forward with the completion and the opening of the Perlman Performing Arts Center. Completion of the World Trade Center campus has been one of the highest priorities of the Port Authority for 20 years. The PAC opening represents a huge milestone, and in my judgment, one the agency and the region can take great pride in. Second, at Newark, the new world-class Terminal A, which opened partially at the beginning of the year, opened its final gates, bringing the total to 23 and all remaining concessions. And now I'm pleased to be able to report to the board that Terminal A is fully in service and itself receiving great acclaim. Third, the Port Authority is issuing this week, delighted to say, here I have a prop, a major strategic plan, which the board will hear about shortly, advancing our environmental agenda. The Port Authority's roadmap to net zero, which addresses head-on the Port Authority's commitment to be in the forefront of fighting the existential crisis of climate change. The roadmap outlines an aggressive series of goals and actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to reach net zero by 2050. The agency is committed to deliver. Fourth, the purchase of 2 of our marine terminals at Port Bayonne and at Howland Hook achieved financial close a short 3 weeks ago, with the purchaser headed for major investment and expansion. The new lease terms have strategic and financial significance, setting a new template for seaport leases at the seaport, and they will guide the seaport for decades to come. And the new purchaser brings itself great financial resources. It is one of the largest carriers in the world, and we're delighted to have CMA CGA part of the Port Authority community. Fifth, on the board's agenda today is also the final approval for moving Tower 5 at the World Trade Center forward. This is one of the 2 final pieces in completing the redevelopment of the World Trade Center site, and we look forward to the Silverstein Brookfield Development Partnership, now with all approvals in hand following the board's action, moving the project forward energetically. Sixth, the Port Authority and the Gateway Development Commission negotiated a proposed agreement for the Port Authority to provide construction management services and code inspection services to GDC on one specific but very important portion of the Hudson Tunnel project. Subject to board approval later today, these services would be provided on the building of the core and shell of the tunnel. This is obviously one of the most important infrastructure projects in the country, and we are pleased to provide services in support of its construction. That is quite a 7 weeks, I would say, to the board. I have 2 final notes. In August, the Port Authority welcomed 151 new police officers to the Port Authority Police Department in the 121st Police Academy graduation. The graduating class was the most diverse in the history of the Port Authority. The addition of these officers to the PAPD advanced both the agency's commitment to provide safe and secure facilities, as well as the agency's continued commitment to diversity. Second, also within our commitment to providing secure and safe facilities, the Port Authority announced 2 highly significant additions of law enforcement executives to the Office of the Chief Security Officer. Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw is leaving that post to join the Port Authority as the Deputy Chief Security Officer. Our new Deputy Chief will bring to her post 2 decades of policing experience. Additionally, Michael Harpster joins the agency as the Director of Security Operations. Harpster has held a wide variety of senior positions in his 2 decades at the FBI. We welcome Deputy Chief Outlaw and Director Harpster to our vitally important security department. And I want to say more broadly, we are enormously thankful, as always, to all of the employees of the Port Authority who are the ones who carry out the tasks and who make these significant events possible. And we also continue to be grateful to the leaders of the 23 unions who represent the majority of our workforce. With that, Mr. Chairman, I conclude my report.
Right. And we're going to have, really excited about Deputy CSO Outlaw coming on board soon. And we're going to have a swearing in of sorts in October. And I think, Rick, we have seen a vast upgrade between Greg Erie, who's here, a couple of decades FBI, soon to be Deputy Chief Outlaw, a huge upgrade. I mean, we had it vacant for a while, but I think what she brings, unique background, really going to upgrade our capabilities, technology. And I know with 20 years, Director Harpster brings a strength and a vitality that is sorely needed. So I think we've gone a long way to strengthening the infrastructure and the security of the Port Authority senior staff. Well done. We've also looking at, Rick, a couple of this renovations done in this room. So we're welcome back after a couple of months. I know we've had some improvements. The folks who have done this together, I know we've tried to do as much in-house as humanly possible. Job well done, and I think they're going to Jersey City next to make a couple of renovations, and long overdue, but a job well done, whoever's supervising it in the back there. You folks take a bow. Thank you very much. Any questions for our Executive Director on his monthly report? Alrighty, now we have a presentation from our Executive Director and William Labenthal, the Port Authority point person on Gateway program, who will discuss an item authorizing the Port Authority's provision of construction management support and in-code compliance services for the tunnel core and shell in support of the Gateway Development Project. And we will consider this for on the record later on. So let's first of all hear from our secretary, any recusals before we move ahead.
There are no.
William, Rick, you're on.
Just as a framing comment, which I reflected in my report, Mr. Chairman, the Hudson River Tunnel Project, part of the Gateway program, widely recognized as one of the most important infrastructure projects in the country, now moving forward under the leadership and responsibility of the Gateway Development Commission. The Port Authority was requested to provide some services in support of the Gateway Development Commission. Given the importance of the project, we are pleased that we will be providing support services. And William, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today I'm presenting on the request for authorization of the agreement that Rick has just briefed you on. So first, some background on the approach to constructing the tunnel. As you all know, Gateway Development Commission is responsible for advancing the tunnel project. It is taken a contracting approach of breaking up the project into multiple construction packages, one of which is the core and shell package. That consists of 4 individual contracts for the heavy civil construction work for the new tunnel. That includes the tunnel boring itself. So Gateway Development Commission is actively procuring some of these contracts, including the Hudson River Ground Stabilization, the Manhattan Tunnel, Palisades Tunnel, and the Hudson River Tunnel, the 4 of which constitute the core and shell. So in its role, Gateway Development Commission is procuring, awarding, and holding all construction contracts associated with the project. So today's request is for the authorization of an agreement for the Port Authority to provide these construction support services. Under this agreement, the Port Authority would provide construction management and code compliance services to GDC. The services would be provided by the Port Authority staff and augmented as necessary through the use of GDC's third-party delivery partner, which they are currently procuring. GDC would reimburse the Port Authority for all of its expenses, and the Port Authority's liability would be limited to instances of intentional wrongdoing. If approved by the board today, the agreement is expected to be executed in October. Commissioners, welcome any questions you may have on the agreement and authorization request.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah,
Commissioner Cohen.
I actually, in a prior iteration of this project, worked with Mr. Leventhal and with Mr. Helmy as well. And what people forget is that Gateway actually emerged out of the port as a separate entity because the port had concerns about the financial risks and what Gateway would potentially do with respect to the financial integrity of the Port Authority. And so this compromise was struck and a new entity was created. And I will note that largely through the work of Mr. Leventhal and Rick and other members of the port team, they stuck to the core, no pun intended, mission of ensuring that the port was able to lend support to do what it was supposed to do without ever compromising the port, but while living up to our commitment. That is acknowledged in Section 1301 of this agreement. I didn't want the moment to pass because this is the type of thing, it's the small detail that if it's not taken care of, gets institutions in the long run into trouble. So I commend you for the incredible work and for staying the course and looking out for the mission and the integrity of this agency.
Well, Commissioner, as you refer to the history, I think it's important to just have stated the primary contribution of the Port Authority is a financial one. And what the Port Authority has committed, the board has passed this twice, is $2.7 billion of support for the project. And so what is before the board today is this construction management services, code compliance services. That is a relatively small part of the construction activity that is going to be going on at GDC. But the primary contribution of the Port Authority will be a very significant financial one. And we will obviously be moving forward on that.
Anyone else want to be heard? All right, we're going to defer this until we vote on at the public, and I think part of the thanks goes to, as Commissioner Cohen alluded to, legal, Amy, Lillian, Steve Plate, all those folks who've been involved in this, and also want to thank publicly Chris Calori and his staff. I'm told by people that sometimes the negotiations are rather tense. But I will tell you, if Chris is a professional, and as much as we may have disagreements, we will work with him and his staff, and they've been just totally professional, and looking forward to moving on and getting more markers of progress with this very important project, and long overdue project, by the way.
Mr. Chairman, I feel compelled to say that if they have been unfailingly collegial.
So there's been no tense negotiations? Is that what you're telling everybody?
I'm telling everyone that they're collegial, and I really reflect great credit on Chris Calori and his staff.
Terrific. Excellent. All righty, moving ahead, we now have a presentation from our Chief Development Officer, Derek Utter, who will discuss an item concerning the development of World Trade Center Tower 5 to be considered for the board later today. Prior to the start, do we have any recusals, Jim?
There are no recusals.
All right. Derek, we've taken a long, windy road here with Tower 5, so why don't you give us an update and tell us where we're at?
Great. Thank you, Chairman. I'm here to provide a quick update on where we are and also to seek approval for a modification to the deal that we brought to the board in May, and the board approved to move forward on in May of this year. So just to provide a little bit of context and background, this relates to the Tower 5 site. So you'll see it on the diagram of the World Trade Center site at the bottom. This is in the southernmost part of the site. This originally was a Deutsche Bank building that was damaged in 9/11, and Lower Manhattan Development Corporation, LMDC, acquired the site in 2004. We, along with the LMDC, ran a request for proposal process starting in 2019 to identify a developer to build on the site. And so the development team, after that RFP was designated in February of 2021, and in May of 2023, this year, Port Authority, LMDC, and the Empire State Development Company boards approved the project. So as I said, I'm going to provide an update on a revision to that deal. So the project that was approved in May was a developer team led by Brookfield and Silverstein, along with two affordable housing partners, Omni and DeBar Development, brought forth a proposal to create a residential mixed-use building. It's a very tall residential tower with 1.5 million square feet, 1,200 rental apartments. There's a small office component at the bottom. You can see a podium in the picture there. Instead of selling the site outright, we would enter into a 99-year lease, and the developers would pay us 21% of the cash flow before debt service, or $12.5 million per year, escalating, the greater of those two. Prior to May, there was a series of actions that the ESD and LMDC boards went through. They started with the designation of the developer team in February of 2021. But after that, that kicked off a lengthy process. So you'll see what happened over the next 2 years. There was a general project plan for the site, which provides the zoning and the modifications necessary to that, since it was originally zoned for an office building. They ran through a series of public hearings and comment periods to modify this general project plan, and went through an environmental review as well. And in April of 2022, the boards approved this modification to the GPP, and they approved the residential development with at least 25% affordable units. In May of this year, the boards approved the project to move forward. They had increased the number of affordable units by that point to 30% of these 1,200 units, so about 360, but included a provision that said that if there was additional funding that came available, that they would seek to increase the affordability. That's what we'll talk about today. The transaction was still subject to New York State Public Authorities Control Board, PACB, approval. So that was May of 2023. In parallel, our board took this up twice. So in May of 2021, our board conditionally approved this designation of the developer team. And in May of 2023, we also approved the project with a minimum of 30% affordable units, again, subject to the ability to increase the number of affordable units if there was additional funding. So what I'm seeking today is an update on the deal, which does include some additional funding. The public sponsors, primarily Empire State Development Corporation, LMDC, identified $65 million of additional New York State funds. There was a request for the Port Authority to provide a rent credit of $12.5 million, which is, as you may recall, the amount of annual rent we'll start to receive when the building opens. And this additional funds provides for an increase in the number of affordable units from 30 to 33.33%, so up to 400 units. 20% of those affordable units would be dedicated to 9/11 survivors and 9/11 first responders. And we would reduce the income thresholds, so make them more deeply affordable, so that on average they have 80% of area media income. This is slightly lower than was originally agreed. So in July of 2023, just 2 months ago, the Public Authority Control Board approved this transaction with this enhanced affordability. So I'm here today to seek the board's authorization for this one-time rental credit of $12.5 million. That's the change that affects the Port Authority, and to reaffirm the previously authorized terms other than that. Okay, with that, I'll take any questions.
Great, Derek. Any comments or questions from the commissioners? Anyone? All right, we're going to defer voting on this until after the speakers program. Thank you, Derek.
Thanks.
In November of 2021, we adopted a resolution embracing the Biden administration's new goals of net zero emissions by 2050, becoming the first U.S. transportation agency to set a net zero target for all emissions. Our Director of Sustainability, Chris Diamond, will now provide some details on a roadmap to get us there. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon. As he said, my name is Chris Diamond. I am the relatively new Director of the Office of Sustainability. I measure my tenure here in months still, not in years and not in decades like many of my colleagues do. But I'm very excited to be here and to present to you our net zero roadmap. So the climate change itself has become a climate crisis. We are working in parallel with the states of New York and New Jersey to take committed, bold action to aggressively respond to this crisis. We're fortunate in that both of our states are quite aligned. They're seeking this vigorous change, and this report is in support of that effort to eliminate our greenhouse gases. As many of you already know, we have commitments that we have made by the board, 2018 to hit 80% reductions from a 2006 level by 2050. In accordance with the Biden-Harris administration, that has been upped to net zero by 2050. We have an interim goal from 2018 to hit 35% in 2025, and we're on our way to do that, which is just a couple years away. And we also have another interim goal to hit 50% by 2030. And to be clear, the interim goals are the direct emissions of the Port Authority, whereas our 2050 goal includes all the emissions on Port Authority properties, including those outside of our operational control. Many of our partners and stakeholders also have made similar goals, and so this process is going to be more about alignment and collaboration. So we've laid out this net zero roadmap, which we released day before yesterday, and it establishes how we're going to get there. We checked Google Maps. Nothing comes up. They don't have directions for this. No one does. ChatGPT doesn't have directions. So we've created our own roadmap. We've laid out 12 strategies with over 40 implementable actions that will get us there. The Port Authority is already well on our way to our 2025 goal, and this report identifies those concrete actions that we are taking. The report also provides a framework for us to collaborate and continue the conversations with our partners and stakeholders. Together, we've made significant progress, and there is much, much more bigger items that we need to tackle together. So the Port Authority emissions include Scope 1 emissions, which is fuel burned directly on site. That's typically natural gas that is heating our buildings. Scope 2 emissions, which come from the fuel that's used to create the electricity that we use. Our vehicles are also in our Scope 1. The electricity we use lights all our bridges and tunnels, it heats and cools our buildings, etc. But our Scope 3 emissions are indirect emissions where we don't have full operational control, but we do have a very strong influence. Leased airline terminals, drayage trucks, and of course, aircraft and marine vessels. So our roadmap identifies areas where we can act and areas where we can influence. Our actions are leading by example on many of our own facilities. We're already implementing energy efficiency measures in our buildings. We're starting to decarbonize them. We're electrifying our vehicles, and we're backing that all up with renewable on-site generation, as well as clean power purchases from the grid. Our main sources of influence are partnering on innovative technology, negotiating green terms into our leases and investigating new technologies, and making sure we provide the necessary infrastructure in support of our partners and stakeholders. We're addressing our own emissions by converting our vehicle fleet to zero emissions. By 2025, we will have half of our non-emergency light-duty fleet vehicle all electric. And we've already announced that we are going to move up our 100% goal from 2030 up 2 years to 2028. And we already have the largest electric bus fleet of any airport operator. We are busy identifying the availability of medium and heavy-duty vehicles, and we will add them as appropriate in the replacement cycle of our vehicles. This includes electric options as well as other clean fuels. We are currently piloting renewable diesel for some of our hard-to-convert vehicles. We also operate a lot of very specialized equipment and emergency response vehicles, and we're starting a pilot with police vehicles very soon. This new equipment all needs charging infrastructure, and we're working with the staff at our individual facilities to ensure that it is in place prior to the vehicle delivery. On the building front, a number of energy efficiency projects are helping to put us on track to 2025, and we're launching our building decarbonization process with the historic Building 1 at Newark Airport. This building was the first airport passenger terminal, and it will now be our first to be decarbonized by 2025. Together with the COO's office, we're aligning our decarbonization strategy with our asset management and state of good repair process. By incorporating decarbonization into the projects that we are already doing, we're able to save money as well as limit the disruption to our facilities. Working with our engineering unit and major capital projects unit, we're setting standards so that our new buildings come online ready to meet our 2050 goal. To make sure our facilities operate as efficiently as intended, we are incorporating technology such as automated building management and optimization systems so that we can in real time respond to the buildings and ensure that they're operating efficiently. All of this electrification needs to be energized with clean power. To that end, we've already installed over 32 megawatts of solar, including 5 megawatts at Newark, which is the largest single parking rooftop at an airport, plus an additional 3 megawatts in progress. JFK's long-term parking lot 9, the huge one out on the end of the air train there, that gets over 12 megawatts of power with 7.5 megawatts of battery storage. That's New York's largest solar plus storage system. We are currently reviewing proposals for 4 megawatts on 7 different sites at LaGuardia and an additional 5 megawatts at Port Jersey. Both New York and New Jersey, as states, are setting very aggressive goals for the greening of the grid, and we're exploring ways to purchase additional clean energy. We're completing 2 complementary studies in the next few months. First one, analyzing the capacity, the electrical capacity at all of our facilities, and the second, forecasting the demand at all of our facilities. The nexus of these 2 studies is going to inform us of any major electrical infrastructure needs. Together with decarbonization of our central plants, these future needs will need to get addressed in future capital plans. So here we have a glide path that demonstrates our way to 2025, 30, and beyond. The blue line represents our direct emissions from the 2006 baseline. We have data for 20 and 21, and we can proudly say that we've met our target, but we all know that those years were anomalies due to the COVID pandemic. We're still processing the data for 22, and with some of the key projects that are about to come online, we're well on our way to 25. We'll continue those efforts and ramp up building decarbonization, and with our updated goal of fully electric light-duty fleet by 2028 and a good dent into our medium and heavy-duty fleet, we'll be well on our way to 2030. Collaborating with our stakeholders, we've already made some great improvements. We've reached over 1,000 electric ground support vehicles airside at the airports. This equipment isn't owned by the Port Authority, it's owned by the airlines and their ground handling contractors. Almost all of the ship-to-shore cranes, which also mostly aren't owned by the Port Authority, are now electric. There's a long way to go on these third-party vehicles, And we're using this roadmap as a tool so that we can have the right conversations with all of our partners. Of course, the biggest issues that we have to address are marine vessel and aircraft fuels. No one has the solutions yet, but many of the large corporations that we work with have set similar goals to ours. I believe later today you'll be voting on renewing our Clean Vessels Initiative for ports, which is estimated to prevent over 115,000 tons of Scope 3 emissions over the next 5 years. It's not perfect, but it definitely is a big dent in the right direction. We're working with the Federal Department of Energy, NYSERDA, the state of New Jersey, to convene a wide range of stakeholders to promote sustainable aviation fuel, also known as SAF. You'll see that acronym coming up quite a lot. We've also negotiated a new ports lease that incorporates much stronger language about sustainability, which is in line with both our goals and our partners' goals. And so together we're working to help decarbonize their operations. Our next steps going forward are to implement the actions that we have in this report. We will continue our transparency and report our emissions on an annual basis. We're working internally to try to automate that process so that it can be done much more timely. And we will continue to convene and collaborate with our stakeholders. This roadmap is an invitation for further conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any comments or questions from our commissioners? You know, Rick and I had a press conference with Chris and others a couple days ago at the Terminal 1 building at Newark, and that's going to be the blueprint of how we decarbonize our buildings. And it was symbolic, but it's also just states that this is a top priority, and Rick and I said that very clearly. This is probably the most important initiative the Port Authority can embrace for years to come. I think the roadmap is as significant and substantial a program that I've ever seen compiled by any agency. And I'm hoping, Rick, that we use this and share this document with other agencies, other governmental agencies that should really be following the Port Authority's lead on this. You want to add anything, Rick?
Well, I would just say, Mr. Chairman, first of all, I want to compliment Chris and his staff, Derek Utter, who was deeply involved in the preparation of this roadmap, represents a tremendous amount of work. And what I would hope the board takes away from it, and indeed all of the employees of the Port Authority take away from it, and others who are watching the Port Authority, that we are intensely serious about meeting head-on our commitment to address climate change. This is an effort to take it from being mere pledges or mere words into outlining what we've called a roadmap, but actual actions to be taken by the organization to move toward the net zero goal in a very serious way.
Thank you, Rick. Anyone else? All righty. Thank you very much, Chris. At this time, we're now going to provide an opportunity for the members of the public to comment on Port Authority matters. This public comment period, which will be limited to 30 minutes. We ask those individuals to present their views. It's not really a dialogue. We just want to hear from you. And if there's a specific issue, we'll be more than happy to direct you to the appropriate personnel. And we're asking the speakers to comply with the fixed time of 3 minutes. So there are initially 6 speakers who signed up. We've now crossed one out. Have 2 of those individuals, Matthew and Jacqueline, left pre-recorded statements or written statements, Jim?
Matthew left a written statement. We have a pre-recorded statement from Jacqueline, which will be shown at the end.
Okay, and the written statement will be made part of the record?
With the transcripts, yes.
Okay, so then we have 4 speakers. First one, Christopher. We missed you the last couple of meetings, Chris.
Yes, I'm sorry, but there are times that your meeting is the same time as the Transit Riders Council meeting. But before I do anything, you did ask about the zipper tie.
Yes. Your mother showed it to me before, just so you know.
Well, I'm wearing mine, and I did do that today at the press conference. As you know, today, the press conference was opening up another elevator with business to work together with the MTA, and I hope Port Authority can think of that also here in New York. If any PATH trains near the stations getting built, it could be another way of the city can save, and I'm sorry, the Port Authority and the MTA to save money, because any new development being built near, it will help the seniors and people with disabilities. That's one thing that Macy's did today. We thank them very much. But today, I like to bring up again, and forgive me as a broken record, but I have to. The accessibility, as you see, this card you might think this is a full Omni card. No, this is a test reduced fare card. In the back, my card will say RF, which is it's not a curse word. It stands for reduced fare. Because some people might think that, I'm going to say no. This card will give me access to the bus, the subway, and the Roosevelt Island, but it does not give me access to the air train or the path. As a person with a disability, it is not easy for me. We really want to work with accessibility because the ADA does stand to make sure that a person can get on a reduced fare price on a subway, on a path, on a boat, or whatever transportation from as your sign says, air, land, rail, and sea. We do need to make sure, as we are going electric, we need to make sure everything is truly ADA accessible. From a person with a disability to our veterans, from our veterans to our seniors. We need to make sure that we please, let's work together to make everything truly ADA accessible. I have no problem working with the staff. I'm a team player, and I'm not like everyone else, like violence and stuff. I like to work together to get accomplished done. I've been an advocate now for 30 years. And people say, well, you look so young. Well, I started I was a kid. So I'm now 40 and I still want to continue advocating so the next generations can see that accessibility is not just on the MTA, not just Amtrak, but everywhere. So can we work on something in the future to make more, how can we work together to make more accessible and make an easy card? Because it's not just a card they do this in, they also do this on their cell phones too for reduced fare. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone, and happy Rosh Hashanah, belated Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Deborah.
Good afternoon. And no, I'm not upset he aged me. He did. I am a senior. I want to say the reason why I'm the other tester, but I'm also known as Omni Woman. If you've seen the videos or I'll ask the MTAs accessible to send it to you. I go around and they filmed me. I was able to use my cell phone. I can tap. As I said in last month's meeting when I brought my cousin, Mrs. Menino, she has hand tremors. And when you try to swipe the cards, it's impossible for her. So I'd have to wait before I could go. When you see, I have an AutoGate card. And I will tell you, I'm happier now using the Omni because an AutoGate machine ate my card just after I put all the money on it for the monthly. They got my card back. I wouldn't take it back. It was so greasy. I couldn't understand what happened to it. So when they said to me, you want to test? I said, sure, I'd love it. So my cousin and I now are independent. I don't have to swipe for her, and I definitely don't have to worry about the AutoGate card. I hope we can work together to make it easy for persons like myself who have disabilities. We're seniors, and I'm proud to be a senior, that I can go from where I live. I live that far from Coney Island, but I like going to a lot of the malls along the path. I really enjoy them. They're fun, and I want to be able to get out. But I would like to be able to seamlessly use one card, possible. It would make not just me, but so many of us want to go out, but it's hard because we have to then figure out what other card to get. If we can make the process for the regional metro, I'm talking about the people who use the subways, path, the buses, so that we can get on and off, and we can either shop if we want in Jersey, or, of course, say New York. And let's please also try to, it was passed, I am on my local community board, it was passed in New York City that any new buildings that want to get tax deductions and be able to build a little higher, if they are supposed to help build elevators and help pay for it. So I hope Port Authority, please take advantage of that. It would be great for everybody, for the pass stations that don't have elevators. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Next speaker, Nellie Weissman. I saw him out there. Good seeing you from the Federal Reserve last week, so we see each other again.
Thank you for the kind words.
Chairman O'Toole, Director Cotton, Commissioners, good afternoon. You have copies of extended remarks, and I asked that be included in the minutes. I've also posted a link on CompleteGeorge.org. Regarding the North Walk, in March I shared an op-ed published in Streets Blog that the detail work is beautiful, but it doesn't safely support current demand, and it has no capacity for growth. I've since learned that the agency now asks cyclists to walk their bikes across, which is something it doesn't do on the AASHTO-compliant Bayonne and Goethals bridges. Today I will share an account of a crash on the Manhattan Bridge and the implications for the George. Completed in 1909, the Manhattan is the youngest of the three bridges connecting to Brooklyn. It has 7 lanes for cars, 4 subway tracks, and a pair of 10-foot wide paths, one for pedestrians and the other for cyclists. On July 26 at 11:30 p.m., there was a high-speed collision involving multiple scooters and cyclists. An ICU nurse came upon the scene 15 minutes later and called 911. All riders sustained significant injuries, some critical. She later posted accounts online. Fair warning, they're quite graphic. Word spread. Some cyclists called for scooters to be licensed and banned from bridges. Others demanded that bike lanes be widened and to hold accountable the apps that incentivize delivery workers to ride as fast as possible. I have long feared that a similar crash on the George would compel the agency to make everyone walk. But then what? The George is the sole bikeable Hudson crossing out of New Jersey, and congestion pricing is certain to fuel a surge in micromobility across its span. Next on the remarks, you should see a map of the Port District depicting environmental justice communities with the George circled around them. Traffic and pollution coming off it have long impacted its residents, but its paths connect them to jobs and green space. Since climate legislation creates set-asides for projects that benefit these communities, the George should be eligible, as should the Outer Bridge. No matter how well designed, there will always be crashes on bikeways, but proper design can minimize their frequency and severity and insulate the operator from litigation. A single 10-foot path gets you the Manhattan Bridge. It also frees up the walkways for exclusive use by pedestrians. 2 10-foot paths enable safe passing, eliminate the threat of head-on collisions, and create capacity to support regional bike share. And I hope you will consider this path project in the Net Zero Roadmap Initiative. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Hear from our last live speaker, Omar Vera. So we're waiting for Omar to come. It's just so the commissioners know, this is a recharging station right here in front of you. I know we think it's a coffee cup holder. Yeah, I know. So just future stuff. You just put it on. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Port Authority members. I just want to mention a couple things.
Yes.
For starters, I think it would be a great idea if on the MTA's new fare payment system were implemented on PATH, because you're planning to implement it on AirTrain JFK, but I don't understand why the PATH doesn't get Omni, considering the PATH and the subway on 6th Avenue overlap. I think it would be a great idea for PATH to undertake this, to participate in this project for One Metro New York. Hence, it'll create unity in terms of fare payment. That's the one thing I want to mention. And then the other thing is still wondering what's the update regarding the PATH extension to EWR or Newark airports. Like, I know, I understand we had the COVID pandemic a couple years ago, but we're still wondering about what update is there going to be regarding the PATH extension to the airport, because that's another thing we're waiting for, and that's been on the works. That's been planning for a long time, many years. That said, thanks for the information today, and see you around.
Thank you, Omar. Appreciate your comments. All right, we have a pre-recorded by Jacqueline Wells, CWA President. Jim?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I, as the president of the Communication Workers of America, Local 1032, CWA, representing the dedicated support staff employed by the Port Authority, stand before you today to address some pressing concerns that currently affect our working environment. To foster a positive and cohesive work environment, we believe is crucial for the management and leadership personnel receive additional training in the area of communication and morale building. Effective communication and proper guidance and implementation of established policies and adherence to contractual guidelines are integral to our daily operations, yet these elements often fall short. One significant issue we face is the lack of response to telephonic and email communications, hindering timely and adequate responses to our requests. This communication breakdown has eroded effective interactions between management and subordinates. Our support staff is a vital asset to this agency, as demonstrated during the COVID-19 pandemic, ensuring bills were paid and salaries distributed promptly agency-wide. Yet our members remain the lowest paid and least respected in our organization. Our seasoned employees are tasked with training external candidates who are able to negotiate higher salaries for the same job. As we are currently embarking in ongoing wage negotiations, we're treated as if our request for fair compensation is deemed unreasonable. None of our represented support staff members are adequately compensated for their contributions to the agency. We operate under outdated contracts and job descriptions that don't reflect current daily tasks due to technological advancements throughout the agency. In conclusion, our support staff is the lifeblood of this agency. We deserve recognition and respect as any other member of this organization. I'm here to ensure our voices are heard, working tirelessly until these issues are addressed. Together, we can forge a brighter future for our support staff and the entire Port Authority. Thank you in advance for your prompt attention to our requests. In solidarity, Jacqueline Wells, President of the Communication Workers of America, CWA Local 1032, Branch 8, representing the Port Authority support staff. Thank you.
And Jim, so Matthew Highland's written has been attached to the record,
That's correct.
and there's no other written?
That's correct.
Great, so we move ahead. It's now time to proceed with the voting of items. Each of the respective committee chairs will provide a brief report prior to each of the matters being considered today. As Chair of the Committee on Operations, I'll now present 3 items under the committee's purview. The first item authorizes the continued funding of the Port Authority's ocean-going Clean Vessel Incentive Program for a 5-year period at a cost of $8 million. Prior to making a motion, I ask the Corporate Secretary to note any commissioner recusals.
There are no recusals.
Any comments or questions? Motion, please.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bollwage?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Commissioner Helmy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
Votes are in order. The item is confirmed and approved. The next item authorizes revisions of the lease transaction approved at our last meeting of last May for the development of a multi-use building for the southern site on the World Trade Center, consistent with the terms outlined by our Chief Development Officer earlier in this meeting. Prior to making a motion, I ask the Secretary if there's any recusals.
There are no recusals.
Any comments or questions from the commissioners? Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bollwage?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Commissioner Helmy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
The votes are in order. This item has been approved. Next, we have discussed earlier that an item that was authorized an agreement with the Gateway Development Commission for the Port Authority to provide construction management support and code compliance services in support of the new Hudson River Tunnel Core and Shell Project. Prior to making a motion, I ask for any recusals.
There are no recusals.
Any comments or questions from our commissioners? Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bolwage?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher? Yes. Commissioner Helmy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
Votes are in order. The motion is approved. We will now hear from our Vice Chair Linford to provide his report on behalf of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Chair of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, I will now report on 3 items. The first item authorizes a project for the rehabilitation of runway 1-19 at Teterboro Airport at an estimated total project cost of approximately $41.8 million. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the Corporate Secretary to note any commissioner recusals.
There are no recusals.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Hearing no questions, I now request a motion.
So moved.
I have a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. I now request the Corporate Secretary to call the roll for voting on the item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bolwage?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher? Yes. Commissioner Helmy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
As the votes are in order, this item is approved. The next item, which was discussed earlier today in committee, authorizes $8.3 million for planning work to determine the feasibility of widening the Outer Bridge crossing as a cost-effective strategy to reduce congestion and improve traffic flow. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the Corporate Secretary to note any commissioner recusals.
There are no recusals.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions, comments on this item? I now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. I now request the Corporate Secretary to call the roll for voting on this item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bolwage?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher? Commissioner Helmy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
As the votes are in order, this item is approved. The last item would reauthorize a project for the construction of a concrete seawall to protect rail track along portions of paths right-of-way in Harrison, New Jersey, at a total cost of $44.73 million. This reflects a $1.83 million increase to the project cost. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the Corporate Secretary to note any commissioner recusals.
There are no recusals.
Thank you. Do any commissioner have questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I now request the Corporate Secretary to call the roll for voting on the item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bolwage?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher? Yes. Commissioner Helmy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
As the votes are in order, this item is approved. I now turn it back to our chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I now ask Commissioner Cohen to provide his report as the Chair of the Committee on Finance. Commissioner Cohen.
Thank you. As Chair of the Committee on Finance, for a vote by the Finance Committee only, I am recommending consideration of a resolution authorizing the purchase of public liability insurance for coverage for a 1-year term and insurance coverage for acts of terrorism for a 2-year term. The insurance provides coverage for all facilities of the Port Authority and its component units. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the Corporate Secretary to note any committee member recusals on this matter.
There are no recusals.
Any questions or comments on this item by any committee member? I now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Can I have a second on the motion?
Second.
I now request the corporate secretary to call the roll of the Committee on Finance for a vote on this item.
Commissioner Cohen,
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe,
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera,
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson.
Yes.
As the votes are in order, the item is approved. Turn it back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There being no further business, I move to adjourn. Second.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's now adjourned.
Thank you.
Hey, Greg, why don't you bring up Mike Harps to meet some of the commissioners and show who our new director of security is? Yep, we're good, Tom.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. First question is Ry Rivard from Politico.
Hi, thank you. Can you talk a little bit more about the relationship with the Gateway Development Commission? For those of us who haven't been following this, my impression is sort of Christie killed the thing, sort of fell apart, then sort of walked away from it, hasn't gotten money to build it, and you're coming in to manage the project. Can you sort of talk about that? You know, you used to build things, Lincoln, GW. Why not this one?
Let me go back to the beginning, which there was a conscious decision made by the two states, New York and New Jersey, to create a special purpose entity, the Gateway Development Commission. It happened in 2015, and to manage the project, to assemble the financing to support it, and then to both bring in the resources, the construction contracts, but essentially to run the project from beginning to end. That was a decision by the two states. Actually, it was then approved, legislation passed by the New York and New Jersey legislature twice. So the framework here was a very conscious decision to choose a special purpose entity, the Gateway Development Commission, to construct the project, and that is exactly what's happening. In fact, they announced, excuse me, at their board meeting on September 11th that they had let the first two contracts, one a construction contract and one a construction management contract. So that's the framework here. The conscious decision, the Port Authority didn't walk away from anything. There was a conscious decision by the two states to assign the responsibility for the project to the Gateway Development Commission. The two states very recently asked the Port Authority to support the Gateway Development Commission in a specific aspect of construction management. And that is actually what happened. Was discussions between the two entities. The Gateway Development Commission is procuring the construction companies. They are holding the contracts. They are running the project. Port Authority recognizes that this is one of the most important infrastructure projects in the country. We were asked to assist. That's now been reduced to writing. We will be providing on what is the largest single element of the construction, meaning the core and shell, the actual building of the tunnel. We will be supporting the Gateway Development Commission in building that, but we will be providing them construction management services, and we will also be supporting them in providing code inspection services. So very targeted, very specific, and very responsive to what the Gateway Development Commission thought would assist it in carrying out its primary responsibility for building out the project.
Look, Gateway owns it. We are restricted for many reasons from quote owning it. As Rick said, we have carved out a very small role in helping out with the purchasing, which I think was a great credit to the Port Authority, and also, you know, managing the core and shell. And it's very restricted to that, along with the financial contribution, which you talked about at the public.
Right. I want to emphasize the financial contribution. The big support that the Port Authority is providing is $2.7 billion. And that is a very important, obviously, component of the local share of financing the project. And the board has twice approved that, and we are totally committed to providing it.
As we stated publicly, the working with Chris Calori and his staff has been really professional, rewarding. It's been collaborative, and we see great things from Gateway and under Chris's leadership. Yes, Tom.
All right, we have three. You guys hear me? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes. Three virtual questions. First is Larry Higgs with New Jersey Advanced Media.
Hey, Larry.
How's it going?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Great. Okay. My question is about the Outer Bridge Crossing widening study. I watched a video of a car crossing the bridge, and it shows basically 2 lanes in each direction with no shoulder. My question is, where or how could the existing span be widened? And wouldn't the money be better spent on basically studying building a new bridge?
Larry, we were asked to do a widening study. I mean, but take a step back. The Outer Bridge crossing is obviously outdated. So what do? So what's underway is a significant amount of work on the span in terms of near-term repairs and what I guess I would call midterm strengthening of the bridge, just in terms of managing it in its current state. Right now, the next step, as I say, we were asked to do it, is to study one particular option, but it will inform what other options are available in terms of looking to the future. And the first step is going to be to carry out this study. It will look at traffic. It will look at all aspects of both what the bridge needs immediately and particularly whether it can be widened. And we're not prejudging it. We'll carry the study out.
The follow question is basically, you mentioned there's one particular option that's being looked at. Can you describe that option? Are we talking about building lanes, either double-decker on the bridge, or what is that option?
Well, the engineers are going to decide that option, which is, as a matter of logic, you could look at widening the lanes, you could look at adding a lane, but what we were asked to do was to study the option of widening the bridge as a nearer term and less expensive option, one that can be accomplished more quickly than rebuilding it. And so that's what the study's going to look at, and it will be the engineers who decide what options are practicable, and they will have a free hand in deciding the scope of the study.
Thanks, Larry. Tom?
Our next question is Colleen Wilson with the record.
Hi, thank you. Just wanted an update to see if there was any update on the congestion pricing study that the Port Authority has undertaken, and when that might be released to the public.
Well, we have that study underway, but we'll take a step back. The decisions with respect to congestion pricing are going to be made by the MTA. They obviously they have had conversations and input from a variety of sources. In terms of what we want to look at is what are the implications for the Port Authority. And right now there are multiple options, and in a environmental assessment study, for the MTA has made clear that none of the options that are actually in that study are likely to be the precise option that comes out of it. So at this point, we're trying to evaluate the potential impacts on the Port Authority. But until we have a specific option that they're moving forward with, we're not going to have a document to release to the public.
Thank you.
Next question, Tom.
Last question is Kevin Dugan with Streets Blog.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I also have questions about the Outer Bridge Crossing study. First one is there any plan either in this study or just in your work in general to add pedestrian or bike access to that bridge?
Well, the study will look at widening the bridge. And I think with in today's world, in terms of less carbon intensive transportation alternatives, the widening study will have to cover the question of whether there's a path that is part of or could be part of any future option for moving forward with the bridge.
Thanks. And then, with the well-established phenomenon of induced demand, where if you expand highway infrastructure, it can quickly fill back up with more cars. Are you worried at all that this, any widening could backfire and increase congestion on the bridge?
Well, that has to be part of the study. I think induced demand is a very good point. The study should cover all aspects of how to move forward on the bridge, and induced demand is what will have to be part of the study.
That it, Tom?
That concludes the Q&A. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.